Hello and welcome to the UDYR REWORK Champion Spotlight. Yet another jungle rework has arrived, and yet again it's another jungler from the Freljord. As you're seeing a thematic introduction, in the rest of this video I will break down all his abilities, how I think they will play out, how I think you can use them, where he might fit in the metagame regarding jungle, as well as have a look at the numbers and to see where we can maximize his strengths regarding itemization and rune sets. Please do let me know in the comments which form of the UDYRs you prefer and what build itemization you are thinking of going. As always, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider leaving a like and of course subscribing. I've timestamped everything for you below, and now without further hesitation, let's begin. Okay, we're going to start off with the passive. UDYR has 4 basic abilities: Awakened Spirit, that swap between stances. No ultimate, obviously, same thing. He can periodically recast his active stance to awaken it for bonus effects, with a shared cooldown between stances. Now that's important because there is approximately 30-second cooldown at the moment on his passive, which means if you used Awaken Q, for example, and then you wanted to use Awaken Phoenix and R, especially while you're full clearing at the beginning, you're not going to be able to do that until that passive goes all the way back down to 0. And that's important here for monk training. A little nod to Lee Sin for lore enthusiasts. Each time UDYR enters or awakens a stance, his next 2 attacks gain attack speed and refund some of Awaken's cooldown. You want to keep using those abilities as much as you can in order to get the Awakened Spirit cooldown all the way back down to 0. And then of course you can amplify whatever ability it is that you need in the particular situation. So UDYRs that can think quickly, and then obviously know which abilities they want to empower, will be the ones that thrive the best. Q is called Wilding Claw, and each one of these abilities will go for a Freljordian demigod in terms of their identity. This one obviously is going to be the Volibear. And this one gains a burst of attack speed, and his next 2 attacks deal bonus physical damage. Now, on the face of it, that doesn't seem like a lot, but if I give you the full tooltip, you will see that you gain 25% attack speed for 4 seconds. UDYR's next 2 attacks in this stance maul the target to deal a bonus 3.2% max physical health damage, or max health physical damage rather. That then scales with AD. So important to note, if you want to amplify this, the Tiger Stance will still be your attack damage focused build. Now, when you awaken this, that's when things get even more interesting. You gain even more attack speed, and his next 2 attacks chain lightning off the target, bouncing up to 6 times, very much like Volibear's passive, well literally like Volibear's passive. And lightning, unlike real lightning, can strike the same target multiple times, dealing heavy damage to isolated targets. A little bit of Kha'Zix in there, but you will note that that is max health magic damage, and of course scales a little bit with AP, much like Volibear's does as well. So in terms of, your all-out mauling and all-out brawling ability, this is going to match exactly what we have here, but we do lose the dot damage aspect, which people were concerned about, but you have a lot of max HP damage and physical damage with the Awaken as well that can sort of offset that. And obviously, technically, Chain Lightning can be considered damage over time to a little bit of a degree, but it's not quite the same thing, is it? In this one, Iron Mantle W, this is the juicy one. UDYR gains a shield and his next 2 attacks restore health. Now again, that doesn't seem like a lot. Like, how does it restore health? And I wish Riot would be a bit more detailed than these breakdowns, but if I slide on in the full tooltip once more, you'll see that the shield scales with bonus HP as well as AP, and you do gain 10% lifesteal over the next 2 attacks, and obviously you get HP back on hit as well. And then you'll see the Awakened stance where UDYR gains an even bigger shield, and his next 2 attacks heal even more, and he restores a percentage of his max HP over the next few seconds. And again, on the Awakened, or the full tooltip rather, you can see the full details of that. So this ability now, using that HP and AP, there's no scaling on the lifesteal, it's just a flat amount, and you can see obviously 6-second cooldown. All the abilities have a 6-second cooldown, as you do with UDYR, so there's nothing we can really focus on in that aspect, but definitely haste is going to be something we're going to talk about quite a lot. But this ability, I like it. The Boar Guard, really something super interesting in terms of, hey, if I can awaken this in a team fight, and I've got a lot of bonus HP and a little bit of AP in there, all of a sudden, maybe there's a build that kind of maximizes everything, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video, but that awakened use of shield in terms of damage absorption as well as sustain and healing is really going to be something that a smart UDYR and a good team fighter is going to use to thrive. Alright, this one, as you know, Q is going to be my favorite for Volibear, and as you all know, I love Ornn, so Blazing Stampede is the ability for us to essentially be Ornn in the jungle in a more Riot accepted sense. Udyr gains a burst of movement speed, replacing the old bear stance. His first attack against each target while in the stance lunges a short distance and stuns them. There's also a per unit cooldown, but this very much looks and acts exactly like a Volibear Q, so it wouldn't be surprising if they use the exact same animation tech in terms of getting that through. But you can see that the movement speed he gains is 30%, it does decay, and it does stun the target for 0.75 seconds. Now, if you awaken this, you're going to gain even more movement speed, but you're going to become immune to crowd control. This is going to be really, really great for allowing him to get into fights. So for those of you who are really concerned about losing that movement speed passive, losing the turbo speed, Giga Udyr running around and getting into fights just by being faster than everyone, this offsets that to a large degree. It mitigates it because you become immobilized and you disable effects, which means basically you're like a Rengar W plus a Volibear Q mixed together, and you do gain that additional movement speed for 1.5 seconds as well. And you're seeing in the repeated clip here that he's using it to dodge a Sona engage. So when you want to run at a team comp now and you get stunned like that, there's nothing you can do other than flash or, you know, have a QSS or something. But now, however, we have this whole thing built into his kit where we can run at them, bait the spell, awaken our ability, and then get into the team fight. And now you want to swap your abilities as much as possible to get that awaken down again as much as you can, so that perhaps we use an empowered ball, or in a really close fight and we want to awaken our Q, the Volibear passive, and so chain lightning together. Or we can then awaken our Phoenix stance. And this one obviously is Anivia. Now most of us who know the lore of Ornn and Volibear, we choose to ignore Anivia, and we don't like the champion at all. And, you know, Trick doesn't like Anivia either. No one really likes Anivia, basically. But this is Wingborne Storm. This is the new Phoenix, where Udyr temporarily summons a storm around him that slows and damages nearby units. His next two attacks cause the storm to pulse, dealing bonus magic damage. And again, you will see on the full tooltip there, it scales with AP. We don't have the final numbers yet. That'll be something that will be released in the patch notes and obviously on the wiki when, you know, he goes live. But awakening this unleashes the storm, causing it to deal additional damage and chase after nearby enemies. Now that's a big one, because it's kind of like a Victor spell in that sense, where it can chase down and stick with them. So would this be something you necessarily activate in a close AoE fight? Yeah, definitely. So if you can use your empowered Blazing Stampede to get into the fight, bait ultimates, and avoid any CC and be free of, you know, any chains that shackle you out of nature, which is what we want in this situation, then you can use your Wingborne Storm to really AoE down people with a lot of magic damage. But again, that magic is absolutely huge in terms of your passive on your Q. It's going to be huge in terms of your boar stance, and it's going to be huge in terms of your Wingborne Storm. And obviously in terms of ability scaling, that's very, very similar to how Udyr scales on live in his classic form, with a lot of heavy AP that people don't really accentuate too much, but also why we saw so many Lich Bane tank, Demonics Embrace tank, Magi's builds in the last year or so. So what do I think about this overall, and how do I think it will leave him in terms of what kind of state and how he relates to the meta? I think, obviously everyone knows that Udyr currently in the metagame in high elo is extremely potent when used correctly. People like Malice are always having success. I covered the Udyr playstyle and video a couple weeks ago on how to play a farming jungler. Will he still be a farming jungler? Yes, I still think he's going to maintain his identity. I do think thematically they've hit the nail on the head. However, the execution, I would have preferred if he put on a little less pounds, you know, than he did compared to his current form, which is obviously a bit more classical in terms of a fantasy game aesthetic. At the same time, the splash arts for me, big step down in a lot of cases. I don't like the poses. I don't like a lot of the direction they went in terms of how to present him in those splash arts, especially always the top-down angle and the big hand. Like, are we playing the hand or are we playing the deer? Which one is it? Don't really like that at all. However, in terms of base model in-game, that is something I'm very much looking forward to playing. I love Freljord, I love Ornn, I love Volibear. I'm really excited to, you know, get to play those champions in Udyr's kit specifically. That's always fun when you're looking for a thematic champion pool. And I think you're obviously going to have the PTA, you're going to have the Conqueror, you're going to have the Lethal Temper. All of these are still going to be highly, highly valuable. The beautiful thing about this kit for me, the thing that I think is going to allow him to thrive significantly more so than he does now in terms of your total average player base, is that immobilizing spell on his E. Being able to awaken it, avoid and cleanse crucial CCs, and then being able to get into the fight and then use whatever awaken spell you think is necessary for that fight, whether it's something where you're amplifying Tiger Stance, well, not Tiger Stance, but just the Q, the Bear Stance, which is going to be a little bit weird to get used to. That's going to be one thing, but then obviously you're going to have the Turtle Stance, again, not the Turtle Stance, and then of course you're going to have the Boar Stance, where it makes you unholy tanky, and the fact that we scale so much with AP, like we do in live, I don't think that's going away. For me, the biggest thing about, the new thing for me about using that Wilding Claw Stance versus, you know, your typical and classical Tiger Stance, which we have here on screen, at these AD ratios. This just did not do enough in the modern game to be able to be something truly viable. Are you seeing a top lane? Yeah, of course. But in the jungle, we want to farm quickly. We want to move around the map quickly. We want to make sure we're getting into ganking angles. And then typically we were seeing more of your tanky builds with an AP itemization thrown in. Is that something that's going to keep going? Yes, because we're going to need haste. 100% you want to have haste on this champion. Obviously, it's still 6 on live. It's going to be 6 with the rework. I think his spirit, in terms of how he's played, is going to be the same. But I'm hoping, much like Volibear, much like Fiddlesticks, they're going to make it healthier where they can be balanced and still kept relevant in every level of play. Volibear was like that. He struggled to be relevant outside of low elo towards the end of his life, and then they made him something that could be picked in pro play, picked in high elo, definitely still very, very strong in low elo, and that's something that they're able to balance now because they've got so many things in his kit. But with Volibear, with Bel'Veth, we talked a lot about, ability ratios and what they scale with. And the issue with that is you kind of now have to think, well, what ability do I go first? Which itemization do I go with? With UDYR, it's pretty simple. You're gonna need some HP, obviously. You're gonna need some AP, obviously. It's just gonna depend if you want to focus on the 3 abilities that scale off of that, or if you want to scale more of the new claw and the Q and really focus down on your attack speed plus your AD focus. There's a lot of damage. That max physical damage is gonna be a lot, and how that scales and how they choose to scale that is gonna determine how viable it will be. But I do think, your Sunfire, your Frozen Heart, you're going into Demonic's Embrace. I think these will be standard things to rush and play around initially, as Phoenix will still be amazing. It will help your Q passive on the, it will help the Q passive on the Wilding Claw. It will do great things for your Iron Mantle, or do great things in your new Phoenix stance. And being able to get into fights and amplify, I think the W plus the R are going to be the most crucial aspects of the champion. Just getting in is now going to be possible thanks to our E. So in terms of what we maximize and play around, I still think not a lot is going to change in terms of exactly how you itemize, but I do think perhaps with some lethal tempo in there, with those builds, with some PTA potentially with your Wilding Claw stunts, that could be really, really interesting. Trinity Force, Titanic, or Ravenous if you want to do that as well. That's still going to be good. Amplifying as much of that AD ratio as possible, but definitely getting HP regardless is going to be absolutely huge, just in terms of giving you survivability from your Iron Mantle stunts. And I'm gonna have to relearn all the names here because I keep misspeaking. Overall, I love the thematic. Overall, I love the direction they've gone in terms of the Freljordian demigods. Yeah, there's a lot of connection to Ionia, obviously, as well. But at the same time, I think keeping the spirit, pun not intended, of UDYR together is the crucial aspect of a rework. They did it with Volibear, but they changed a bit more. This still is UDYR. It still plays like UDYR. If you main UDYR, you're gonna keep playing it the same exact way. Just the strength that you have are going to be a little bit different. You're not going to have that movement speed passive in your passive that allows you to turbo speed, do laps around the map. But you now have accessibility into fights. So instead of being, a split pusher or someone who runs around and does the gates, which you probably still can't do, I'm sure Trick will figure out a way, you can now actually get into fights and team fights very, very well with that empowered or awakened E, and then obviously using your enhanced shield for survivability, or using the Wingborne Storm and the ultimate to kind of chase down teams who want to disengage. Even if they don't want to fight you, you can give them some of that good old Phoenix stance, AP storm damage that chases them down and finishes them off. So for me, I think they've done a very good job keeping it together. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the overall splash out aesthetic at all. I do think the models in-game are fine. It is what it is. I will be playing this. I will be testing it out. Let me know what you think of the rework below. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.